Good morning. Can everyone please rise in body or in spirit for our opening morning song? It's in the Teal Hymnal number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. I'd like to invite the small family to come forward this morning to light our chalice as we remain standing and recite our covenant. Enriched by our differences and joined together in our search for meaning, we covenant with ourselves and each other to seek truth in a spirit of love, to strive for justice, and to serve others with a joyful heart. Thank you. Take a few moments now to greet your friends and neighbors. Good morning and welcome to everyone who is here in person and also to those folks who are joining us online. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, and no matter who you love, you are welcome here. My name is Sharon Fichtorn, and I'm serving as your worship associate this morning. Our interim minister, Reverend Ed Brock, Chrissy Bushhager, our director of religious education, a member of our congregation, Jeff Kowalski, and our musicians, Bob Rowland and Gabby Sachs, will be leading us in worship this morning, with expert help from our AV team and hospitality teams. We are grateful to those people for their support. I want to give a little shout out to everyone who attended the auction last night, or who sent in a proxy bidder, who helped make food, serve food or drinks, dance, listen to the band, and bid on our auction items. So thanks all of you for your participation in that event. It was great fun. If this is your first time attending our services, we extend you a special welcome. Please remember that if you are viewing this service online, you can activate closed captioning if that is helpful for you. And if you'd like to talk with others after the service, there will be a virtual coffee hour. You just need to stay logged in and you'll be able to connect. And of course, if you're attending our worship in person this morning, please join us in Fellowship Hall for coffee and refreshments right after this service.
Each Sunday, we gather together, bringing with us whatever joys or sorrows are on our hearts that we brought here from our week apart. And we can share those joys and sorrows in community with a ritual of dropping a stone into a bowl of water. As we drop the stone, we watch the ripples spread through the water, symbolizing the way our joys and sorrows ripple through our community and are shared with one another and held together in love. At this time, we invite you to come forward, drop a stone into the bowl of water, and share your joys and sorrows. If you're joining us on Zoom, you may share your joys and sorrows in the chat at this time. will drop 2 more stones, one for the violence experienced by those in war around the world, and one for the joys and sorrows expressed by those on Zoom and those who are not with us today. And now, please join me in our seated song, Spirit of Life. All right. Oh, that works so much better. Thank you, Bob. All right. Technology. Okay. So, our story this morning is from Reverend Karen G. Johnson, and it's a true story. And it's about a man named John Lewis. And I know it is a true story because I have a picture of the real person, John Lewis, and the picture is going to appear any second now on the screen. And I know that that's a real person because there's another real person, 2 real people in a real photo. So that is our minister, Reverend Ed, with John Lewis. So this is a story by Reverend Karen G. Johnson, based on John Lewis's memoir, which was called Walking on the Wind, or Walking with the Wind. And here's how it goes. So John Lewis was a great leader in our nation. He died a few years ago, about 3 years ago. And he was beloved by many, many, many people. He did a lot of really amazing, wonderful work for justice in our country. John Lewis wanted everyone to be free. He wanted everyone to have fairness, and he worked for justice among all people. He tried to encourage people to do their absolute best and to do even just a little bit more in the fight for justice and anti-racism. Now, John Lewis tells this story about something that happened when he was growing up. He grew up and he had a really, really big family with lots and lots of children, lots and lots of cousins. And he tells this story about when he was a child, and there was this day when he was playing with a bunch of his cousins and friends. There were about 14 kids playing at his aunt's house. They were all playing outside, running around, having a lot of fun. And a big storm started to come up. started to blow. Have you ever been outside playing with a bunch of kids, maybe just by yourself, and a big storm comes up? Maybe it's a summer day. Yeah, I'm seeing some hands. So maybe it's a summer day, and it's one of those bright, sunny days, and then all of a sudden the sky gets really dark, and it almost feels like it's nighttime, even though you know it's the middle of the day. Yeah, you've had that experience. So it felt like that. And the wind started to blow, and maybe the first raindrops started to fall. So all the kids went into the aunt's house. 14 kids crowded in a pretty small house. They all crowded in, and the wind is blowing, and the rain is falling, and it's a tin roof, a metal roof. So the rain makes a really, really loud sound on a metal roof. If you've ever heard the sound of rain on a metal roof, it makes a much louder sound than if it's not a metal roof. It's kind of a cacophonous sound. So the wind is blowing, the rain is really loud, it's a big storm, really dark, and John is starting to feel scared. And he thinks that the other kids probably feel scared too. He's even starting to wonder if his aunt is feeling a little bit scared. And the wind is howling, and the house is starting to shake a little bit. And all of a sudden, one corner of the house starts to lift up a little bit. The house starts to lift up. Oh my goodness. So John's aunt has all the children hold hands and run to that side of the house and hold down that side of the house. Can you imagine? They all held down that side of the house. And then the other side of the house starts to lift up. So all the kids run to the other side of the house and they hold down that side of the house. Then the other side starts to lift. So they all run to that side of the house. They hold down that side of the house. Through the whole storm, the group of children holding hands runs back and forth across the house, holding down each side of the house until the storm was over. And now I'm going to read you what John said, what John Lewis said about that situation. Because I've been telling you my words. I've been summarizing his story. But I think it's better to read you what he wrote about it. So these are his words when he was an older man telling this story. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over those many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed. They came together and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle and the house would stand still. And we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. And we did. And we still do, all of us, you and I. Children holding hands, walking with the wind. Thank you for listening to not my story, but John Lewis's story.
At this time in our service, we ask for your financial support. Your support, the free and generous support of each member and friend of this community, is what fuels this community and its mission. Without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly and be a beacon in the world. You can text your donation to the number provided on the screen. There are also boxes in the back of the sanctuary where you can leave a check or cash if you prefer.
Blessed river, polishing stones, she is polishing our hearts. We are claiming our thrones to sit side by side in our awakened homes. Love is always watching. Love is always watching. And we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. Sing our prayers for freedom for all humankind. Medicine giver, gentle spirit of the land, she is polishing our hearts in ways we do not understand. We walk side by side and offer both our hands. Love is always watching. Love is always watching. And we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. Sing our prayers for freedom for all the land. Sing our prayers for freedom for all the land. Brothers, sisters, brave pilgrims of the night, we have followed our hearts into the truth. We have arrived to sit side by side in divinity's light. Love is always watching. Love is always watching. And we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. Sing our prayers for freedom for all the world. How about you join me? And we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. So we're gonna sing, sing, sing our prayers for freedom. Sing our prayers for freedom for all the world. Sing our prayers for freedom for all the world. Sing our prayers for freedom for all the world.
Now is the time in our service when our children get to go to their religious education classes. We will sing our sending song through 3 times. First time we sing it all together. Second time our teachers go and meet and get ready in the lobby to meet the classes. And the third time our children will head out to meet their teachers. Remember, pickup from religious education is at 10:45. Kindergartners need to bring a jacket because they will be going outside to do some sidewalk chalk.
Good morning. I hope everybody had a good time last night. The activist and thinker Albert Camus said that while he was pessimistic about human destiny, he remained optimistic about human beings. This can remind us that people need to pay attention to the here and now, when there is both personal pain and sorrow and many injustices to overcome, but also love to be shared, all encouraging us to promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In my life, what's motivated me to resist racism in myself and strive to overcome it in our society has come from various sources, learning more about it from reading or seeing examples of it on TV in the 1960s civil rights era protests to more recent deaths of black people by police violence or avowed white supremacists. But what most motivates me are the times I've been able to meet and talk to black people and get to know them better and listen to them and learn, thereby building bridges based on deeper knowledge, understanding, and empathy. Such personal knowledge began when I was 16 and attended a summer program in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that brought white kids and black kids together for learning, conversation, and social events. It continued when I met my wife's college roommate, Frances Gray, who helped us to get to know other black students on campus. Now, in this church, I've felt a sense of beloved community through Soul Matters, where deep discussions about our joys and sorrows builds greater trust and caring. I've been blessed to get to know two of our group members, Lana Vitale and Glenda Hodges, as friends. From my coming of age in Tulsa until today, I've known that as a person born with lighter skin, I've had advantages not shared with others who face greater obstacles to recognition of their full humanity. I know that we need to keep working to create a more loving, just, compassionate, and equitable world. Knowing of human frailty, I doubt I'll ever see a completed and perpetual beloved community or a kind of heaven on earth. But I also know, knowing human love, having experienced it, that all of us can strive to work toward that goal. And I'm going to close with one thing that I found last night, reading an article in the New Yorker about Bayard Rustin, who was a principal organizer of the March on Washington in 1963. This was his credo. He summed it up in 5 simple steps. 1, nonviolent tactics. 2, constitutional means. 3, democratic procedures. 4, respect for human personality. And 5, a belief that all people are one. May it be so.
Battle lines are drawn, and once again, somebody's saying, wait, be patient. If they knew how long it would be before all people could truly hear freedom ring, I wonder which end of that moral arc would they choose. I wonder if more would have walked in his shoes. This is what revolution looks like. You've got to get in, then stay in this fight. You've got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out. Somebody called him a saint among men, a founding father, an icon, a legend. Ordinary people with such extraordinary vision in a country so young, hard pressed on every single side, but not crushed, saying in God, love, and justice we trust, 'cause this is what revolution looks like. You've got to get in, then stay in this fight. You've got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Make good trouble every chance you get. Eyes on the prize, we're not finished yet. Don't tolerate injustice, my friends. Call them out, but then call them in. If you see something that's not right, not fair, stand up and say we can do better. He said, I may not be with you when we reach the other side, so let the power of love everlasting be your guide. 'Cause this is what revolution looks like. You've got to get in, then stay in this fight. You've got to find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Freedom riders or letter writers, do what you can, just shine your light brighter. Make good trouble every chance you get. Eyes on the prize, we're not finished yet. Don't tolerate injustice, my friends. Call them out, but then call them in, and in, call them in. Find a way to get in the way. Speak up, speak out every day. Make good trouble every chance you get. Make good trouble every chance you get. Make good trouble every chance you get.
Thank you for your beautiful music this morning, and thank you for your testimonial. The belief that all humanity is one will save us. Your last comment was powerful. The following stories represent points along a journey during which I very slowly absorbed the truth with growing awareness of the power and omnipresence of racism and its invisibility to those not negatively affected by it. The following stories, some embarrassing, some painful in various ways to me, show how easy it is to be absorbed by racism, how it affects everyone, including those who believe most earnestly that they are free of racism. I was born on the western edge of Birmingham, Alabama, at the edge of a little town called Fairfield, Alabama. And Fairfield was where my family's social orbit lived. In the census of 1960, there were 8,285 black people and 7,519 whites living in Fairfield. The black people who lived in Fairfield had their own schools, churches, athletic fields, and small businesses. These two communities lived right next to each other, but in parallel universes. Fairfield to the west was surrounded by communities that were predominantly white. The daily life of my family and everyone I knew was strictly segregated. Racism was an unquestioned assumption that did not need to be explained or justified. When I was 8 years old, on the first day of summer, I looked forward with great excitement to swimming in the nearby public swimming pool. For several years, I had burned with envy as I saw my two older sisters and older brother go playing in this pool, and I had to stand outside on the other side of the fence watching them because I was not yet the right age, but now my time had come. And so I walked down to the swimming pool, and to my horror saw that someone had emptied the swimming pool of water, and it was a huge pool, and filled it to the brim with sand. And as I looked through the fence at this site, a white man walked by me, and I reflexively said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, it was to keep the blacks out, because that summer was going to be the first summer where black people were going to be able to swim in the swimming pool." So I went home upset to a degree that I can hardly articulate, but I did not think, nor did anyone in my family say or think, as best I know, what it must have been like to be so hated as a group of people that a group of people would go to the long length of filling a pool with sand, an illegal act, to keep a group of people out. 2 years later, I'm 10 years old. And on the morning of September the 15th, 1963, a bomb explodes before the Sunday morning services at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. That church was 6.3 miles from my home. It resulted in killing 4 young girls and physically and psychologically wounding many more. This church had served as a meeting place, which everyone knew, for the civil rights leaders clustered around Birmingham. There was outrage in response, but I had a secret, because I knew white men who had expressed outrage in their heart that I knew by the intensity of their anger were capable of doing this action. Years later, my friend and high school companion, Doug Jones, as the Attorney General of Alabama, brought those who had done this to justice. But at the time, it was a seismic event of shock and dismay. My father was progressive and liberal in his views about race and politics, and that saved me from the contagion of racism, at least at some level. My mother had more conventional views, but paradoxically, she within the household seemed to have different views than outside of the household. The story of race in our home would be incomplete without mentioning a person who worked in our home, which was common for the time, a woman called Mattie White. Mattie was a black woman who did domestic work in our home 3 days a week. She also worked for my mother's catering service, and for over 10 years, our family was the main source of her income. Mattie was married at 14, and she had 10 children. Her husband worked at U.S. Steel and was the preacher at the church that stood across from their home where Betty lived. Each of her 10 children attended and completed college. Within the home, as I knew her, Maddie exuded confidence, optimism, a can-do attitude that was infectious. She was a confidant and companion, or so it seemed to everyone in the house. At age 16, I was assigned the job of driving Maddie back and forth between our house and Maddie's home. I did this for several years. Carrying Maddie home on those many occasions, I noticed that all the black houses were smaller than all the white houses in Fairfield, and that the land that their houses stood on were much smaller than the homes of white people, at least half the size, and that the streets were more narrow, and that no one had sidewalks, and no one had garages, and everyone had to park on the street, which made going into that part of town very crowded. Why did black people live in such crowded spaces? I was puzzled. I was troubled. But even though I learned a little more about racism then, I accepted it as the way the world was. In my sophomore year in high school, our school was suddenly, by federal edict, integrated. The white children, almost to a person, fled to private schools that were suddenly created. For a year, I went to nearby Inslee High School, which was in Birmingham. My history teacher was a black man who wore a suit and tie each day, spoke without notes, loved history, loved teaching history, and carried himself with great dignity. I noticed the dignity of his bearing, how he carried himself, and quietly and steadily affirmed his value as a person, despite living in a sea of racism. It made a deep impression on me. I learned a little more about racism. After a few months, the principal of the newly integrated Fairfield High School, who was white, who lived near our parents' home, begged my parents to return me to Fairfield. And he prevailed, and I did. The school I returned to was radically changed, 65% black, 35% white. There was tension in the air continually. There were weekly bomb threats that we had to navigate around. The team was so deprived of athletes that the coach begged people like me to be on every athletic team there was. So among the duties that brought me into was being on the basketball team, which is an absurdity, but there I was. One time during our season, we played a basketball in Hueytown, Alabama. Hueytown is a very white, very racist place, or was then. This was literally, when our team arrived, this was literally probably the first time that black players had been in their gym playing a game against them, an all-white team. The state troopers of Alabama anticipated a problem, and there were 25 state troopers there hanging about. Several minutes into the game, a fight broke out between one of our players, a guy named Chip Carter, and the opposing team. The stands emptied. There was a massive fight and brawl. Our coach, who had anticipated a problem, had us run out of the gym. We went into a bus that was waiting for us, and then as we were moving away, I saw through the window as we left dozens of white kids beating and screaming and cursing the bus as we were leaving. And a thought crossed my mind, they're not mad at me, I'm white. They're mad at my fellow students, but it felt like they were mad at me personally. And I saw the face of racism that was unfiltered and felt like a threat to me. I was learning a little bit more about racism as I was terrified. Years later, I'm a UU minister in Florida. I'm attending a training event about conflict resolution. It was sponsored by several big nonprofits in the city I was working in. The workshop leaders were two white Presbyterian ministers who had worked with Bishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa and had learned the art from him of conflict resolution. To this event were invited hundreds of community leaders. Mid-morning, we broke into small groups. We were instructed to talk about our experience with race. I was the first one to talk. I chose to talk about my experiences with Maddie. And as I spoke, I noticed that a black man across the table from me, about my age, seemed to be getting increasingly uncomfortable and agitated as I spoke. Per our group process, members of the group were invited to respond after each person spoke, and the young black man speaks first, and here is what he said to me. My mother did what your Maddie did. Let me explain to you what that was like. When she came home, she had nothing left emotionally after being nice to you all day. She brought her anger home after listening all day to your white people BS and to the petty insults you didn't even know you had made. She had to suffer through listening to you and your people. And that tiny salary you paid her, which barely kept us alive, made her keep going back. It took a lot of suffering to keep you white people happy. Are you so self-satisfied now? I felt his raw anger. It began to dawn on me that everything I had thought about race was flawed, that I had used a system and gained from a system that disadvantaged others while it advantaged people like me. I learned a little more about racism that day. Years later, I am living and working in the San Francisco Bay Area. There I got to know 3 families who were all people of color very well. During this time, there was a series of stories about police shootings of black people that made the national news. These 3 families, because they knew me well, expressed their terror of what may happen to their children, their adult children, especially the males, if caught in the wrong circumstances. Their fear was visceral, powerful, overwhelming, so that in a number of cases, while voicing their fears, they sometimes became tearful. They exuded a raw terror a helplessness, a powerlessness, which I had literally never known, but these individuals felt regularly. Again, I learned a little more about racism. Several years later, from that point, I had lunch with a woman, and you can show the picture now, who was one of the survivors of the blast of the church bombing I had mentioned earlier. Her name is Sarah Collins Rudolph, and for decades she suffered from the physical and psychological effects of what had happened to her in silence. After years of struggle, she mustered the strength to start telling her story after many years, a process that helped her heal while inspiring other people to navigate their own trauma. The terror she had felt as a Black person was unknown to me as a young person. I learned a little bit more about racism that day. You can take down that picture. Then beginning in 2016, I began to notice that white politicians affiliated with a certain political party in this country that had ascended in power were comfortable with abandoning democracy and embracing fascism. And at the core of the beliefs which animated this movement is the inability to embrace diversity, to cling to the ideology of white nationalism and white supremacy, that the power and allure of white supremacy would sway large numbers of people, including people in positions of great power, to forsake democracy, is something I found terrifying. And now I discovered that racism was coming even closer to me in a personal way and affecting my life and my family's life and the future of my children. Now white supremacy was affecting me in a more direct way. But what I felt so fleetingly is something that Black people have known for generations. All of these experiences which I share with you, and much more I could share, led me to become convinced that white people do not understand the degree to which racism permeates our beliefs, our assumptions, our institutions, nor the degree to which the social, political, educational, medical, psychological, and physical lives of millions are affected by racism. When you are accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Progress has been made, but it is slow. It is subject to regression, and it is always fragile. I think understanding racism gets to the heart of what it means to live our faith and practice the worth and dignity of all persons. I do not often speak about this subject for fear that I might offend someone by what I say, or that what I say might be misunderstood and do more harm than good. And therefore, I am reluctant to say the kinds of things I say today. And sometimes, as a white person, I don't know what is the right thing to do or say. My posture then is to listen and to learn about my privilege, about the implicit and explicit bias system called racism that infects everything. I am a work in progress, Yet I hope that over the years I have acquired some degree of awareness of racism, and I am grateful that our denomination has and is engaging its members actively to think about racism. Soon, members of our congregation will introduce the most recent version of Article 2 and other issues which explores this aspect of our values and beliefs. And now I invite you, as you are willing and able in body or in spirit, to rise for our closing hymn, number 1014, Answering the Call of Love. I would like to ask everyone here who is interested in the subject of the revised bylaws, which will happen soon, who have a keen interest in that, to meet me right here in 10 minutes. And if you do come, you might qualify for an early preview of the revised bylaws. I know that's exciting. I know that is something to be excited about. So meet me back here if you have that esoteric interest in 10 minutes. And now may we join together in the extinguishing of the chalice and our benediction. For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come raising life, may God return perfection. And for those who come seeking back,